Greetings, my companion. Is your mind right now like a city that never sleeps? The burdens of the long day seem to remain upon your shoulders, and the quiet of the night only makes the inner voices of anxiety clearer. I understand. The sage Khalil Gibran wrote a line that I reflect upon in this way. Within us lies a silent battlefield where the worries of tomorrow clash with the regrets of yesterday. But tonight, we will not fight. Together, we will find a place to sign a truce for the soul. This is not a sermon. It is a therapeutic journey where we borrow ancient whispers from the book of Hebrews to find the rest that you deserve. The foundation for that rest is built upon a supreme affirmation, a declaration from God Himself. You are my son. Today I have become your father. If you know a soul who is also weary, please share this journey. But for now, the greatest gift you can offer yourself is permission. Permission to stay. Join me. Take a deep breath in and breathe out, shedding the armor you have carried all day long. We are about to begin. Join me and gently close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or simply direct your gaze toward an undefined point in space. Feel the weight of your body right now, where your back touches the bed, where your heels are being supported. Allow yourself to melt into the place where you lie. And now, listen. Listen to the sounds inside your mind. Do not chase them away. Just observe. Perhaps you hear the voice of self-blame. I should have done better. Perhaps you hear the voice of anxiety. What will happen if? Perhaps it is the voice of loneliness, a whisper that no one truly understands you. This is exactly how the book of Hebrews describes the way we often hear messages in our lives. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. Imagine those prophets in your mind are those very voices. They come at many times. When you are driving, when you are showering, and especially when you lay your head down to sleep. They come in various ways, sometimes as a harsh accusation, sometimes as a vague fear, sometimes as a regret so sweet it aches. Each voice is a fragment, a disjointed message, an echo from somewhere very far away. They pull you in every direction, leaving your soul fragmented and exhausted. You have tried to listen to them all. You have tried to answer them all. You have tried to please them all. And that is why you are weary. But tonight, our therapeutic journey brings a release, a great shift. The book of Hebrews continues with a declaration that changes everything. But in these last days, He has spoken to us by His Son. Feel the difference in these words. No longer at many times and in various ways. No longer through the prophets, but once through one person. Imagine you are standing in a room full of radios, each tuning into a different channel, creating a chaotic, static-filled mess of sound. That is your mind right now, and then someone walks in and gently turns off all those radios. He leaves only one on, playing a melodious, warm, clear, and loving tune. Silence comes from turning off the noise, but peace comes from tuning into the right frequency. The word spoken through the Son is not a fragmented message. It is a complete presence. It is not a demand of what you must do, but an affirmation of who you are. And the first word, the most foundational word that voice speaks, is not a judgment, but a word of love from the very heart of the universe. You are my son. Today, I have become your Father. Let this sentence permeate every cell of your body tonight. Let it be the only sound you choose to listen to. When the voice of failure speaks, let this word reply, I am a beloved child. When the voice of anxiety rises, let this word envelop it, I am a child of the Creator. When the voice of loneliness whispers, let this word embrace you. I am never alone, for I am in my Father's house. This is not an intellectual dialogue. This is a truth for the soul, a truth with the power to silence every dispute. That sun is called the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of His being. When you look at Him, listen to Him, you are touching the very heart of truth, of love, of peace. All other voices, no matter how loud they seem, are merely echoes, faint shadows. So, tonight, give yourself permission to rest. Rest from having to listen to everything. Rest from having to answer everyone, including those people inside you. Listen only to the single voice, the voice whispering to your weary soul right now. You are mine. You are loved. You are safe. Inhale this truth and exhale the noisy echoes. Let the peace of this final word be the softest pillow for your mind. You have chosen to listen to a single voice, the voice of encompassing love. That is the first and most important step to finding rest. But perhaps, even though you have chosen stillness, the soldiers in the kingdom of your mind are not yet ready to lay down their arms. They are loyal sentries who have guarded you for so many years. They are messengers bringing news that you believe is vitally important, news that cannot be ignored. These messengers in ancient theology are called angels, beings who bear messages, those who execute commands. In the kingdom of our mind, they exist too. There is the angel of forethought, always flying in from the future to warn of 1,000 possible dangers. There is the angel of regret, always returning from the past, repeating mistakes you cannot fix. And perhaps the most powerful, busiest angel of all is the angel of control, always trying to arrange everything, planning for every scenario to ensure that your kingdom never collapses. These messengers bear no malice. They believe they are protecting you, but their service has become a burden. Their energy is described as flames of fire, burning and restless. They light up your mind in the middle of the dark night, not with the light of peace, but with the glare of vigilance, of restlessness. They keep you awake. And so we go deeper into the foundation of rest. We need an affirmation that not only drowns out the noise, but can also make even the busiest messengers bow their heads and listen. Join me in visualizing your mind as a kingdom, a vast land with mountains of memory, rivers of emotion, and forests of dreams. And in this kingdom, your messengers, your angels, are constantly flying back and forth, delivering urgent commands. They believe the survival of this entire realm depends on their diligence. The poet Khalil Gibran, looking into the depths of the human soul, asked a beautiful question. And tell me, people of Orphalese, what have you in these houses? And what is it you guard with fastened doors? What are we guarding behind the doors of our minds? Are we guarding the fear of failure? Are we guarding an image of perfection we try to paint? Are we guarding the illusion that we can control everything? And we have tasked our inner angels with guarding these things at all costs. It is a wearying task. For the greatest enemy of control is life itself with its myriad uncertainties. The greatest enemy of perfection is human nature with all its limitations and wounds. This war never ends, and your soldiers never get to rest. But the book of Hebrews brings a truth that can shift the entire power dynamic of your kingdom. The author poses a foundational question. Throughout history, has God ever said to any angel, no matter how powerful, this sentence, "Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet"? Never. God has never invited a messenger to sit down. He has never invited a soldier to take the throne, because their mission is action, flight, and service. The throne is not for them. Supreme rest does not belong to their nature. But he said that to his son. He invited his only son to sit down. Can you feel the weight of this image? Amidst a kingdom full of busily flying messengers, full of the flames of anxiety, the true king is reigning in rest. His power does not come from exertion, but from his very being. He does not need to fly everywhere to prove his authority. He simply sits, and the entire universe turns around him. And regarding his throne, the decree is proclaimed, "Your throne, O God, will last forever and ever." This is the key to your rest tonight. The safety of the kingdom of your soul does not depend on the tireless vigilance of anxious angels. Its stability is not built on your efforts of control. Rather, it is guaranteed by an eternal throne, by a king who has sat down. Because the king is resting, the soldiers can lower their weapons. Because the ruler is at peace, the entire kingdom can be at peace. Tonight, you can speak to the angel of foresight. Rest. The future of this kingdom does not rest on your weary wings. It is secured by an unshakable throne. You can speak to the angel of regret. Rest. The past has been placed under the feet of the king. You need not fly back there to remind me anymore. And you can speak to the angel of control. Rest. You have worked too hard. The right to rule does not belong to you. Look, the true king is reigning, and he is in perfect rest. Those messengers, once liberated from the burden of ruling, can return to their true role, as the Bible describes. Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? They are not your masters. They are companions sent to serve you on the journey toward rest. Let them gently fan you instead of scorching you with their flames. Now, take a deep breath in, imagining that you are inhaling the stability of that eternal throne. And as you breathe out, feel the angels in your mind, those restless flames gradually calming down, settling, and finding peace under the power of the King, who reigns in rest. The King reigns in rest, and therefore the messengers in the kingdom of your soul are also allowed to rest. That is a truth that brings great liberation. But perhaps another question arises in this silence. Where is that king? Does he truly understand what is happening in my chaotic kingdom? Does he understand what it is like to be human? To truly trust and let go, we need a connection, an empathy, even deeper than power. Wonder, do you feel lonely within your own emotions? Do you ever feel that the burden you are carrying, the fear you are facing, or the temptation you are wrestling with is something truly shameful, something no one could possibly understand? That if others truly saw what was happening inside you, they would turn away? This isolation is one of the thickest walls preventing us from reaching rest. We dare not rest because we fear that if we stop, everyone will see our truly weak selves. Khalil Gibran touched upon this deep secret when he wrote about giving and receiving. He described those who give little but pretend to give much, and that hidden desire makes their gifts toxic. But then he spoke of those who have little but give all. These are the believers in life and the bounty of life, and their coffer is never empty. Our weariness sometimes comes from trying to give from an empty coffer. We try to appear strong when we are broken inside. We try to appear cheerful when the soul is weeping. We try to appear in control while we are slowly sinking. We fear our own weakness, and this is where the book of Hebrews brings immeasurable comfort. The king sitting on that throne of power is not a strange, emotionless deity sitting there in his transcendence. To ascend to that throne, he chose an unimaginable journey. The author writes that the king was made a little lower than the angels. Let this image touch you. The one higher than all powerful messengers voluntarily became lower than them. Why did he do that? To put on human flesh, to feel the weight of the body, to know hunger, to know thirst, to know weariness, and most importantly, to taste death for everyone. He does not merely understand your weakness theoretically. He lived in it. He tasted it. He felt it in every fiber, in every beat of a human heart. The Bible goes further, and this is one of the most comforting verses you can carry into your sleep tonight. Because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. The thoughts tormenting you tonight? Is it the temptation of fear? The temptation to give up? The temptation of bitterness, of jealousy, of self-doubt? Your king understands. He was there. He faced those things, not with the power of a deity, but with the endurance of a human. And because he walked that path, he does not look at you with eyes of judgment. He looks at you with the empathy of an eldest brother. So Jesus is not ashamed to call them brothers and sisters. Let this statement embrace your soul. The one sitting on the throne of the universe is not ashamed to call you sibling. He is not ashamed of your weaknesses. He is not ashamed of the tears you are hiding. He is not ashamed of the scars in your soul. He sees it all, he understands it all, and he calls you family. Healing from insomnia and anxiety comes not only from knowing there is a powerful one, it comes from knowing that powerful one is your brother. A brother who went before, who paved the way, and who is now sitting there not to point a finger but to open his arms. Tonight, you do not need to appear strong anymore. You can shed all your layers before this eldest brother. You can present all your weaknesses, knowing they will not be rejected, but received with infinite empathy. Inhale, feeling the warmth of this brotherhood, and exhale, letting go of the burden of being perfect. In his presence, you are allowed to be yourself, and in that acceptance, you find rest. You're not alone in your weaknesses. You have an eldest brother who has passed through it all, and he is not ashamed of you. This truth is like a warm blanket wrapping around your trembling soul. But perhaps, even though you are covered and warm, a restlessness remains inside. A voice of responsibility speaks up. Okay, but what do I do now? Which path leads out of this forest? And so we try to find a guide, a leader within ourselves to take us to the place of rest. Or in the journey of life, every one of us has a Moses within. Moses in the Bible was a great leader, a faithful servant of God. He was the one who courageously confronted Pharaoh, led the Israelites out of slavery, and received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Moses is the embodiment of effort, discipline, loyalty, and the attempt to follow the law as best as possible. The Moses inside us is the same. It is your strongest rational part. It is the planner, the goal setter. It is the voice urging you to be disciplined, to wake up earlier, to work harder, to read more self-help books, to meditate correctly, to try to forgive, to strive to become better. This voice, like Moses, is a servant in all God's house. And we are grateful for this part of ourselves. Thanks to it, we have made it to where we are today. Thanks to it, the house of our soul has not completely collapsed. But here is a harsh yet liberating truth. No matter how great, Moses could not lead the Israelites into the promised land of rest. A whole generation perished in the wilderness. They were liberated from slavery in Egypt, but they could not step into the full freedom of the promised land. They were stuck in between, in a desert of wandering. Do you see your own image there? Perhaps you have been liberated from certain chains of the past, but tonight you are still wandering in the desert of your mind. Thoughts circle without end. Tomorrow is another day of exertion, of fighting, of continuing in this scorching desert. True rest, the land flowing with milk and honey, seems like a distant promise. Why? Why can't our best efforts, the most skilled leadership of our internal Moses, take us to rest? The book of Hebrews points out the cause. Do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion. Hardness of heart, not a lack of effort, but a lack of trust. Not a lack of discipline, but a lack of surrender. A heart hardened by fear, doubt, and the pride of wanting to control the journey oneself. And a hardened heart cannot receive rest. The sage Shibran wrote about freedom in a profound way. And if it is a despot, you would dethrone. See first that his throne erected within you is destroyed. The biggest despot preventing us from entering the place of rest is sometimes the conceit that the internal Moses can do it all alone. We have built a throne for self-effort, and that throne has turned into a prison. But the Bible brings good news. There is a leader even greater than Moses. For the builder of a house has greater honor than the house itself. Moses was a faithful servant in the house, but Jesus is a son over God's house. He is the architect. He is the owner. Therefore, the promise of rest has not been revoked. It is still there, right before your eyes tonight. Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. This rest is not an achievement you must win. It is a gift waiting for you to step into. It is a prepared space. The only thing you need to do is stop wondering. Stop following the limited guidance of the internal Moses. Tonight, gently say to your Moses, "Thank you. Thank you for your ceaseless effort. Thank you for faithfully leading me this far. But your journey has ended. Ahead lies the Jordan River, and only one person can take me across. You can rest now. Let the son, the owner of the house, take your hand. Let him lead you. He does not lead you with a map full of rules. He leads you with his very presence, because he not only knows the way to rest, He is the rest. Inhale, feeling the burden of self-leadership lifting from your shoulders. And as you exhale, visualize yourself taking the first steps out of the arid desert and setting foot on the green grass of the promised land. A place where you no longer need to strive. A place where you just need to be yourself. You have allowed the faithful servant, Moses, within you to rest and handed the authority to lead over to the son, the owner of the house. You are standing at the threshold of the promised land. But to truly step in and enjoy complete rest, one final thing must be addressed. It is the most persistent whispering voice in the soul, the voice of unworthiness, the voice that says, "I do not deserve to be here. There is something wrong inside me. There is a stain that cannot be washed away." Deep within the soul, each of us carries a sense of separation, a feeling that there is an invisible veil separating us from holiness, from absolute peace, from God Himself. We feel unclean, and in an attempt to cross that veil, humanity throughout history has created rituals, dignitaries, and priests. They are the representatives, the mediators, stepping forward to offer sacrifices to try and soothe the sense of guilt, to try and redeem our unworthiness. This is also a process that takes place within the mind. We also have inner priests. That is the part of us trying to do good to compensate for the bad. That is the part of us self-punishing with tormenting thoughts, hoping that such suffering can pay the price for mistakes. That is the part of us trying to offer sacrifices, working to exhaustion, denying joy, living an ascetic life with the fragile hope that this will make us more worthy. Khalil Gibran touched upon this contradiction when he spoke of crime and punishment. "And often have I heard you speak of one who commits a wrong as though he were not one of you, but a stranger unto you and an intruder upon your world." We do this to ourselves. When we make a mistake, we treat that sinful part as a stranger, an intruder that needs to be punished and banished, rather than recognizing it as a weak, wounded part of our own humanity. And the burden of constantly having to offer sacrifices, constantly trying to become clean, is a burden that never ends. It is one of the deepest causes of spiritual fatigue. The Bible describes the high priests of old as merely human, subject to weakness, and so they had to offer sacrifices for their own sins as well as for the people. It was an endless loop of imperfection. But tonight, our journey brings a complete liberation from that loop. The book of Hebrews introduces a supreme high priest, one who is entirely different. He does not belong to a lineage of imperfect humans. He is a priest, forever in the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek is a mysterious figure in the Bible, a king and also a priest, without genealogy, without beginning or end, a symbol of eternity. This high priest is the Son, our eldest brother, and he did something that no other priest could do. He passed through the dividing veil. He entered the Holy of Holies, the very presence of God, and he did not go in empty-handed. But he did not offer temporary sacrifices. He offered himself. He is the priest, and he is also the sacrifice. And this is the most important thing. He did it once for all. Let these three words echo in your soul. Once for all. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? It means the work of trying to become worthy is finished. The loop of self-punishment has ended. The burden of having to offer efforts to atone for errors has been taken away. The dividing veil has been torn from top to bottom. The path into the presence of God, into complete rest, is now wide open. And because this high priest has experienced all human weaknesses, he is not a cold judge waiting to condemn you. The Bible says of him, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to feel sympathy for our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin." He does not just forgive you, he sympathizes with you. He feels the weight of the temptation you face. He understands the conflict in your soul. He knows well the feeling of wanting to do right, but failing. And because of that empathy, the final invitation is not "try harder," but an invitation full of grace. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Tonight is your time of need, the time you need to rest, the time you need peace. Approach that throne of grace, not by your own effort, but by trust in the finished work of the high priest. Cast off all feelings of unworthiness at his feet. Let his mercy wash away every stain, and receive his grace as a gift. Inhale, inhaling the purity and worthiness he grants you. And as you exhale, let go of every burden of guilt and self-judgment. The veil has been lifted. You are welcomed. You are accepted. You are welcomed. You are accepted. The high priest has opened a way, not with temporary rituals, but with his own eternal life. The dividing veil has been lifted, but perhaps deep down a persistent fear of the human condition remains. What happens if this path changes? What happens if this mercy has a limit? What happens if this high priest, like so many other things in life, eventually departs? The world we live in is a world of change. Everything has an expiration date. Spring gives way to summer. The fading day gives way to night. Our health changes. Relationships change. Our emotions change, sometimes rising like the tide, sometimes receding like a desert. We are so accustomed to transience that it is difficult to believe in something truly eternal. Anxiety and insomnia often stem from this very fear of impermanence. We try to cling to what we have because we fear it will vanish tomorrow. We dare not rest, fearing that if we stop, we will be left behind by the ceaseless flow of life. Khalil Gibran, in his contemplation of time, wrote, "But if in your thought you must measure time into seasons, let each season encircle all the other seasons, and let today embrace the past with remembrance and the future with longing." That is a beautiful perspective, a human attempt to find unity within change. But deep down, we still yearn for something more, a solid rock not worn away by the river of time. And this is the final affirmation, the firmest anchor that the book of Hebrews offers your soul to conclude the first act of this journey of rest. The author points out the core difference between the old system and the new covenant. Regarding priests of human lineage, the Bible says, "Now there have been many of those priests, since death prevented them from continuing in office. Everything belonging to humanity is limited by death. Every effort, every system, every position, no matter how good, will eventually come to an end. The safety they offer is only temporary. The anchor they hand you cannot sink to the seabed. It merely floats in the current. But regarding our high priest, the Son, the eldest brother, the affirmation carries the weight of eternity. But because Jesus lives forever, he has a permanent priesthood. Let these words settle. Lives forever. Permanent priesthood. This means the mercy you have received tonight will not expire tomorrow. The acceptance you feel right now will not be revoked when you wake up. The path into the place of rest has been opened and will never be closed. Your high priest is not a season. He is the creator of seasons. He is not limited by time. He is the master of time. And because he lives forever, his ability to save is absolute. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who come to God through him, because he always lives to intercede for them. Save completely. Feel the wholeness in this phrase. It does not just save you from mistakes. It saves you from anxiety. It saves you from fear. It saves you from the fatigue of having to carry everything yourself. And how does he do that? By always lives to intercede for them. Even when you are sleeping, even when your mind wanders, even when you are weak and forget everything, your high priest is still awake. He is still present. He is still interceding for your peace. Tonight, you can truly let go. You can entrust your sleep to him, because your safety depends not on your wakefulness, but on his eternal wakefulness. The anchor of your soul is now hooked into a rock lying outside the flow of time, a rock that cannot be shaken. The journey of the first act has brought us here, from listening to a single voice amidst 1,000 echoes, to recognizing a king reigning in rest, to being empathized with by an eldest brother, to being led by the owner of the house, forgiven by a high priest, and finally, guaranteed by an eternal ministry. This is the solid foundation for your rest. Let your mind rest upon this foundation. Inhale the stability of the eternal promise, and exhale, letting go of the final fear, the fear of change. For in him, you have found the one who never changes. Certainly, I am ready to go deeper into Act 2, the heart of this therapeutic journey. We will translate the core theological arguments into a profound emotional experience, helping the listener shed the final burdens to find complete rest. You are resting on a solid foundation, a foundation guaranteed by eternity. You do not need to fear change, for the anchor of your soul is secured to an immovable rock. But perhaps as you lie here in this safety, another kind of restlessness arises. It is not fear, it is a burden. The burden of having to maintain this peace. A familiar voice whispers again, "All right, what now? How do I keep this feeling? What rules must I follow? What rituals must I perform so I don't lose it?" And so, even in the place of rest, we begin to work. Our journey now enters the second act, the act of liberation. Liberation from the burden of striving. Join me and gently direct your attention inward. Do you recognize an invisible system of laws you have set for yourself? A set of rules to be considered good enough. Perhaps it is the rule, "I must always please everyone," or "I am never allowed to make a mistake," or "I must always appear strong and in control of everything." This is your own old covenant, a contract you have signed with yourself, with life, that if you follow these terms, you will be safe, loved, and accepted. And to maintain this covenant, you have built a tabernacle in your mind, a place where you constantly offer sacrifices. What are your sacrifices? Is it your time of rest, sacrificed on the altar of career? Is it your true voice, silenced in exchange for harmony? Is it your joy, consecrated to responsibility and duty? Every day you perform these rituals. You check your email one more time. You agonize over a past conversation. You plan for 10 possible scenarios for tomorrow. You do all this with the hope that they will bring you peace. But do they truly bring peace? Or do they only bring a perpetual weariness? The book of Hebrews describes this entire old system, with its tabernacle and rituals, as merely a copy and shadow of what is in heaven. Let these two words sink into you: copy and shadow. All your efforts, all the rules you set, all the sacrifices you offer, they are not true peace. They are merely the shadow of peace. You have lived your entire life trying to grasp a shadow. You are exhausted from trying to make a copy perfect. The shadow may give you the feeling that you are drawing near to the real object, but it can never bring the satisfaction of touching that object. It has no substance, it has no weight, and it cannot cleanse the deepest thing, the sense of insecurity in your conscience. The poet Gibran spoke of human law in a vivid way. You can muffle the drum, and you can loosen the strings of the lyre, but who shall command the skylark not to sing? The rules of the old covenant inside you are like trying to muffle the drum and loosen the strings of the lyre. They may create a false silence, a surface control, but they can never create the free song of a soul that has truly been liberated. And here is the liberating truth. Your rituals are not just a shadow, they are also a constant reminder of your failure. The Bible says those sacrifices are an annual reminder of sins. Every time you perform your ritual of striving, a part of you is reminded that you are not yet good enough. That is why you must do it again tomorrow. It is an endless loop. Because it is impossible for the blood of bulls and goats to take away sins. It is impossible for human efforts to erase inherent insecurity. Tonight, healing begins with recognition. Recognizing that you have been living under a system that is merely a shadow. Recognizing that you are weary from a burden that can never bring the result you crave. You do not need to be angry with yourself for this. You did the best you knew. But tonight, a new path is opening. A path that is not a copy, but reality. Not a shadow, but light. Take a deep breath in, inhaling this recognition, and as you exhale, allow yourself to lay down the burden of the rituals of striving. Visualize yourself laying down the tools you have used to try to fix your soul. You do not need them anymore, for a great architect has come to build something completely new. You have realized that you are living under the burden of a system that is merely a shadow. A recognition bringing initial liberation, but it can also bring a feeling of emptiness. If all I strive for is just a shadow, then where is the reality? If the old path leads nowhere, then where does the new path lie? The longing for something more real, more enduring, now becomes more intense than ever. The Old Covenant, both in the Bible and in our own minds, was built on external things. It was written on tablets of stone, on scrolls of parchment. It consisted of rules, commandments, and rituals that we had to remember and follow. It was an outside-in system. We tried to comply with external laws in the hope that one day, change would happen on the inside. But this process often leads to failure and guilt. Because, as the sage Gibran astutely observed about freedom, "For what are laws but shadows cast by you upon your own sun?" We create rules, and then those very rules obscure the light we are seeking. They become a cage rather than a path, and God, in His infinite understanding of the human heart, saw this powerlessness. He knew that an outside-in system could never heal the deepest brokenness. And so, He promised something completely new, a radical change, the promise of a new covenant. And this is the essence of that new covenant, a promise that can change the way you view yourself and your life forever. "This is the covenant I will establish. I will put my laws in their minds and write them on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people." Feel this revolutionary difference. The law is no longer carved on cold stone. It is written on your heart. It is no longer a list of do's and don'ts you must struggle to memorize. It becomes a part of your being. It is the beat of the new heart God gives you. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? It means you no longer need to strive to be good. You are invited to become the very person God created you to be. Change does not come from the effort of the will, but from the natural flow of a new nature. The skylark does not need to try to sing. It sings because that is its nature. A river does not need to exert itself to flow to the sea. It flows because that is its destiny. When the law of love, the law of forgiveness, the law of peace is written on your heart, you will act from those things naturally, not out of compulsion, but because that is who you truly are. This covenant goes even further. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, "Know the Lord," because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest. In the old system, knowledge of God often came through intermediaries, through teachers, through books. It was intellectual knowledge. But in the new covenant, you are invited into a direct relationship, a knowledge of the heart. You do not need to go far to seek peace. It has been sown in the soil of your soul. You do not need to ask someone for the way to God. He is in you, closer than your breath. And the pinnacle of this promise, the thing that brings the most complete relief to a weary conscience, is this: "For I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more." Remember no more. Let the weight of this phrase envelop you. This is not forgetfulness. This is a deliberate decision of infinite love. God does not merely forgive your mistakes. He chooses to keep no record of them. The scorecard has been wiped clean. The debt book has been burned. Tonight, you can stop keeping score yourself. You can stop tormenting yourself over old pages, because the only one with the right to judge has declared that your page is completely white. This new covenant has made the old covenant, the system of striving, obsolete. And what is obsolete and outdated will soon disappear. Inhale, inhaling the promise of a new heart, a new knowledge, a new forgiveness. And as you exhale, visualize the heavy stone tablets within you crumbling to dust, and the pages of the record of sins burning to ash. A new space is being created within you. A space for freedom, for lightness, for the song of the skylark. A new covenant has been promised, a promise of complete forgiveness and a renewed heart. This promise is beautiful, but it is also immense. immense enough that an inevitable question arises in the mind. How can this become reality? A promise, no matter how beautiful, how can it have the power to erase what has happened, to change the nature of a human being? A covenant needs a guarantee. A testament needs a condition to be activated. In the human world, the most important agreements are often sealed with something precious. A contract is signed, an oath is sworn. And in the ancient world, a covenant was often sealed with blood, with a sacrifice. This may sound strange to us today, but its deep meaning is this: a promise is only truly valid when the promiser is willing to pay a price for it. The Old Covenant was no exception. When Moses announced the law, he took the blood of sacrificial animals, sprinkled it on the people, and said, "This is the blood of the covenant, which God has commanded you to keep." That entire system, with all its grandeur and solemnity, was built on the blood of animals. But as we know, it was merely a shadow. That blood could cleanse the outward body, but it could not touch the deepest place where true healing needs to occur, the conscience. And when we look inside at the covenants we make with ourselves, we see a similar sacrifice. We pay the price with our peace. We pay the price with our sleep. We bleed in endless internal wars, hoping that such suffering will somehow make the promise of self-acceptance come true. But just like the blood of bulls and goats, our sacrifice is never enough. The poet Gibran wrote of pain with poetic words, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding." The pain of trying to save ourselves, our endless sacrifice, ultimately only breaks the shell so we can understand a profounder truth. We cannot do it ourselves. And this is where our therapeutic journey reaches the center of everything, the heart of the new covenant. For such a great promise to be activated, an ultimate sacrifice is necessary. The book of Hebrews uses an image from daily life to explain this: the image of a will. In the case of a will, it is necessary to prove the death of the one who made it, because a will is in force only when somebody has died. The promise of forgiveness and a new heart is the inheritance God wants to leave to you. But for you to receive that inheritance, the testator must die. And that is exactly what happened. Our high priest, the Son, the eldest brother, the one who entered the Holy of Holies, did not enter with the blood of any other animal. He entered the most holy place once for all by his own blood, thus obtaining eternal redemption. He offered himself as the sacrifice. He poured out his blood, not on an altar of stone, but on the cross. He died. And in that death, the greatest will was activated. The inheritance of forgiveness was released. The right to inherit a new heart was granted to you. This is not a tragedy. This is a love story. A love willing to pay the highest price. The blood of sacrificial animals could only cleanse the outside, but the blood of Christ, who, through the eternal Spirit, offered himself unblemished to God, has a completely different power. That blood can cleanse our consciences from acts that lead to death so that we may serve the living God. Cleanse our consciences. Let these words go deep into the weariest place of your soul tonight, the place where self-accusations still echo, the place where guilt and shame still cling. This ultimate sacrifice does not just erase what you have done. It heals how you feel about who you are. It brings peace to the deepest place where none of your efforts can reach. Tonight, you do not need to try to sacrifice anything more. The price has been paid. The will is in force. The inheritance belongs to you. Inhale, inhaling the truth of this unconditional love, a love that went to the very end for you. And as you exhale, lay down every effort to pay the price for your mistakes. Let his ultimate sacrifice envelop you, cleanse you, and carry you into the complete rest he has purchased for you. The price has been paid. The will is in force. A sacrifice has taken place, not in a tabernacle built by human hands, but on the stage of the universe itself. This truth is magnificent, immense. But what does it mean for you, right here, right now, as you lie in your bed longing for sleep? How can that grand event touch and heal your small yet persistent anxieties? One of the greatest sources of fatigue and insomnia is the feeling of never ending. Work never ends. Responsibilities never end. And above all, the internal battle to become better, to fix mistakes, seems to never end. We live in a loop. Every day we wake up, we restart the battle. The system of the Old Covenant is the perfect mirror image of this loop. The priest must, day after day, stands and performs his religious duties. Again and again, he offers the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. Day after day, again and again. Do you hear the weary rhythm of your life in those words? Day after day, you stand up and try. Again and again, you offer efforts, promises, resolutions. But deep inside, the sense of insecurity remains. The wound is not yet healed. The loop continues. The poet Khalil Gibran wrote about human progress with a haunting image. Like shells and snails, you engross yourselves in your own horizons, and you move not a finger's breadth, though you believe you are making a journey to the stars. We are in our own loop, believing we are progressing, but actually just spinning in place. Fatigue comes from walking without arriving, striving without attaining. But tonight, our journey brings a break, a cessation, a completion. Contrast the weary image of the priest having to stand day after day with the image of our high priest. But when this priest had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God. Do you see the revolutionary difference? The old priest had to stand because his work was never done. But our high priest, after offering his sacrifice, sat down. The act of sitting down is the most eloquent declaration. It declares, it is finished. The work is completed. The sacrifice is perfect. The loop is broken. His sacrifice is not an event to be repeated. It is one sacrifice for sins. It is not just valid for yesterday. It is valid for all time. It is valid for you right now, tonight. And what is the result of this once-for-all sacrifice? For by one sacrifice, he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy. Made perfect forever. This is not something you must strive to achieve. This is a new status that has been given to you as a gift. Perfection here does not mean you will never make a mistake. It means that, in the eyes of God, your standing has been fixed as perfect, complete, and absolutely accepted, based on what Christ did, not based on what you do. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? It means you can rest from the endless race to prove yourself. The race has been finished for you. You can rest from tormenting yourself about today's failures, for your perfect standing does not depend on your performance. You can rest from worry about tomorrow, for God's acceptance of you will not change when the sun rises. As the Spirit of God testifies to this new covenant in our hearts, He concludes with a final liberating declaration. And where these have been forgiven, sacrifice for sin is no longer necessary. No longer necessary. Let this sentence be a lullaby for your soul. No longer necessary to strive, no longer necessary to pay the price, no longer necessary to torment yourself. The loop has ended. Inhale, inhaling the completion of the work He has done. And as you exhale, visualize yourself stepping off the treadmill of striving and failure. You're stepping into a new space, a space of rest, a space called "It is finished." It is finished, a truth that shakes the foundation of striving. The loop has been broken. The inheritance has been handed over. The path has been opened. Everything has been prepared. But perhaps even though the door is wide open, you still stand at the threshold, hesitating. An inherent fear, the timidity of a soul too accustomed to the feeling of separation, remains. A whispering question asks, am I really allowed to enter? Am I, with all that I am, truly welcomed? Throughout our lives, we have learned that to approach important places, to meet powerful people, we need preparation. We need to dress appropriately. We need a valid reason. We need the right attitude. We carry a feeling that we are the beggar and the other is the giver. There is a distance, a difference in status, and we carry that very mindset into our relationship with the divine. The tabernacle of the Old Covenant was the physical symbol of this distance. There were the outer courts, then the holy place, and finally, deep within, veiled by a thick curtain, was the most holy place, the place of God's presence. Only the high priest could enter there, and only once a year, with trembling and fear. That veil was a tangible reminder. Keep your distance. You're not holy enough to come near. Our minds also possess such veils. It is the veil of shame, hiding things we do not want anyone to see. It is the veil of fear of judgment, preventing us from living authentically. It is the veil of pride, not allowing us to admit our weaknesses. We live our entire lives behind these veils, craving connection, yet too afraid to lift them. The poet Gibran wrote about closeness and distance in relationships. And let there be no purpose in friendship, save the deepening of the spirit. We crave a connection without ulterior motives, without covering veils, a meeting of two souls. That is also our deepest longing with God. And here is the most miraculous news, the direct result of the sacrifice once for all. The book of Hebrews declares an invitation that changes everything. Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain, that is, His body. Let these words paint a new picture in your mind. Confidence, not timidity, not fear, but the assurance, the decisiveness of a child who knows they belong there. To enter the most holy place, not standing in the outer court, not just looking from afar, but stepping straight into the center of presence, of love, of peace. By a new and living way. The old way was a way of dead rituals. This new way is a living way because it is a person and the curtain, that is, His body. When His body was broken on the cross, the curtain in the temple was torn in two. Every barrier, every separation was destroyed forever. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? It means you no longer need to stand from afar and pray in fear. You can draw near. You can pour out your heart like a child confiding in their father. The place you are approaching is not a courtroom. It is God's throne of grace, a place where mercy is dispensed, not punishment. A place where grace is found, not condemnation. And to draw near, you do not need to cleanse yourself first. The invitation is to come with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. Purity is not a condition for you to come. Purity is the result of your coming. It is His presence, His blood, His promise that will cleanse you. Tonight, allow yourself to draw near. Visualize yourself stepping through the torn veil. Leave behind the veils of shame, fear, and pride. Step into a space of total acceptance. Inhale this new confidence, the confidence of a beloved child. And as you exhale, let go of every hesitation. Let His nearness be the softest bed where you can lay your soul down and rest in absolute safety. You are home. You are home. You are in the presence of grace, an absolutely safe space where there is no condemnation, only love. This feeling of liberation is so sweet. And perhaps this is where the most subtle temptation appears. It is not the temptation to do evil, but the temptation to take the received gift for granted. The temptation to think, if grace is so amazing, then perhaps how I live no longer matters. When we receive a priceless gift without paying a penny, there are two ways to react. One is to cherish it every day, living a life worthy of the sacrifice of the giver. The other is to take it for granted and gradually forget its value. The freedom the new covenant brings is the same. It is freedom from the burden of law and striving, but it is not the freedom to live thoughtlessly. Khalil Gibran spoke of freedom with a profound warning. And you have seen men who holds freedom as a yoke and a handcuff. And my heart bled within me. For you can only be free when you even desire to seek freedom is a harness to you. True freedom is not breaking all limits. It is living in harmony with your new nature so that you no longer feel the urge to seek freedom anymore. The book of Hebrews, after painting a beautiful picture of grace, also issues a serious warning. This warning is not intended to sow fear, but is an earnest plea of love, like a father warning his child of danger. If we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left, but only a fearful expectation of judgment. Deliberately keep on sinning here is not just making a mistake. It carries the meaning of a conscious choice, a turning away from the gift. It is the act of having trampled the Son of God underfoot. It is treating the blood of the covenant, which sanctified us, as an unholy thing. And it is the act of having insulted the Spirit of grace. Simply put in the language of the soul, it is when you have tasted the sweetness of rest, but then actively choose to return to the weary loop of striving. It is when you know the path of life, but deliberately walk into the path of death. It is when you are invited into the house, but choose to wander in the desert. Why do we do that? Perhaps because the familiarity of the desert sometimes seems safer than the vastness of the promised land. The weariness of striving sometimes feels more comfortable than the responsibility of freedom. This warning is not a threat that God will revoke his gift. It is a reminder of a law of the soul. When you turn your back on the source of life, you naturally experience death. When you refuse the light, you will be in darkness, not because the light punishes you, but because it is the inevitable consequence of the choice. So, what is the path to walk? The answer is not to return to the fear of the old covenant. It is an invitation to hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. Hold fast, stand firm. Anchor yourself in rest. Recall the first days when you felt this light. Remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you endured in a great conflict full of suffering. You once fought to have this peace, so do not easily throw it away. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. The confidence to approach the throne of grace, the confidence to live in forgiveness, the confidence to rest in finished work, that is your most precious asset. Do not trade it for anything. Tonight, as you prepare to drift into sleep, make a conscious choice. Choose to stay in the house of grace. Choose to trust in the faithfulness of the one who promised. Choose to hold fast to the rest you have found. Inhaling this gentle resolve, not by the power of will, but by the power of gratitude. And as you exhale, let go of every temptation to drift, to return to old paths. Let your soul be anchored firmly in this harbor of peace, tonight and forever. You have been invited to stay in the house of grace, a house built on the foundation of a new covenant, sealed by an ultimate sacrifice, and with doors always wide open. Rest is no longer a distant destination, but a space you can enter right now. But as you lie here, in the quiet of your room, the world outside the window is still turning. Tomorrow will still come, with all its uncertainties. The future remains an uncharted land, and our minds tend to start drawing maps of anxiety. How do we live in this rest when the journey is still ahead? And so together, we enter the final act of tonight's journey, the act of application, of endurance. Rest in the journey. Perhaps no word in the language of spirituality brings so much hope, yet causes so much pressure. We often hear, "Have faith," and immediately a new burden is placed on the shoulders. How do I have faith? Is my faith big enough? Why do I doubt so much? And faith, instead of being a place of rest, becomes another task at which we feel we are failing. But tonight, we will view faith in a completely different light, not as an effort of the will, not as an emotion one must strain to possess, but as a new sense, a way of seeing for the soul. The poet Khalil Gibran once contemplated the limits of our ordinary senses. He wrote that we are often trapped in what eyes see and ears hear, but he also spoke of a deeper ability. Your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights. There is an understanding beyond logic, a recognition of the heart. This is where faith begins. The book of Hebrews opens its greatest chapter with a definition that is not a command, but a description of this spiritual reality. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Let us gently unfold these two keywords. Confidence. The Greek root also means foundation, substance. Faith is not a misty fog of hope. It has substance. It is a solid foundation you can stand on, even when the ground around you seems to be shaking. It is regarding God's promise as more real than the circumstances your eyes are seeing. Assurance. This is a term used in the legal field. Faith is convincing evidence, undeniable proof of an invisible reality. It is the compass of the soul, always pointing to the north of God's faithfulness, even when you are in the midst of a blinding storm and cannot see the stars. So, faith is not about trying to generate an emotion. It is choosing to trust the map of the heart rather than the storms your eyes see. It is not denying difficult reality. It is looking through that difficult reality to see a greater, more eternal reality enveloping it. Why is this important for your sleep? Because the greatest enemy of sleep is the invisible future, the what-ifs. What if I fail tomorrow? What if my health fails? What if I cannot solve this problem? We try to stay awake to control a future we cannot see. We exhaust ourselves trying to shine the faint light of our reason into an endless night. Faith gives you permission to rest. It says, you do not need to see the whole path. You only need to trust the guide. You do not need to understand every answer. You only need to trust the one who is the answer. By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. If this entire visible universe was born from an invisible reality, why are we so afraid of the invisible things in our future? They too are under the power of that very word. Tonight, allow yourself to use this new sense. Gently place your hand on your heart, feel its beat, and whisper to your soul, here is where the map is kept. Here is where the compass is stored. Inhale, inhaling trust in a reality greater than what your eyes see. And as you exhale, let go of the need to see, to understand, to control. Let the mystery of the future rest safely in the hands of a faithful God. You do not need a detailed map. You just need to know the map maker. You are holding the map of the heart, a compass pointing to an invisible yet incredibly certain reality. But perhaps when facing your own journey, a feeling of loneliness creeps in. Has anyone ever walked this path? Has anyone ever had to face such obscure turns as I have, yet still kept the faith? The suspicion that one is the only one struggling is a silent burden. We humans have a deep need for connection, for belonging to a tribe, a family. We find strength in knowing we are not the first to face a certain challenge. Hearing the story of someone who has gone before, who has overcome, we find hope for our own story. Loneliness in battle is one of the greatest enemies of endurance. Khalil Gibran spoke of the invisible bond between generations. For what is it to die, but to stand naked in the wind and to melt into the sun? And what is it to cease breathing, but to free the breath from its restless tides, that it may rise and expand and seek God unencumbered? He saw continuity, liberation, a greater journey of the soul in which every individual is a part. And this is the gift that chapter 11 of the book of Hebrews brings to us tonight. The author does not just define faith, He paints a hall of fame of faith. He invites us into a vast gallery, not filled with cold statues, but filled with living stories, beating hearts, lives lived by the very map of the heart. There is Abel, who offered a better sacrifice by faith, and by faith Abel still speaks, even though he is dead. His voice of integrity still echoes. There is Noah, who, by faith, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. He acted on a warning about an invisible reality. There is Abraham, the father of faith, who, when called, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. He trusted the guide more than he trusted the safety of a familiar map. And there is Sarah, who, by faith, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. She trusted in the faithfulness of the promise more than in the limitation of her body. And the list goes on. Moses, who forsook the treasures of Egypt. Rahab, who saved the spies. Gideon, Barak, Samson, those who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised. What connects all these people? They came from different times, faced different challenges, but they had one thing in common. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. They lived their entire lives based on the map of the heart, looking towards a homeland their naked eyes had never seen. They admitted that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. They were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? It means you are not alone. The feeling of restlessness, the feeling that something is missing, the feeling of longing for a more complete peace, that is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that your soul, like Abraham, is longing for a better country. Those who went before you, these heroes of faith, were not supermen. They too had moments of fear, moments of doubt. Abraham lied. Moses got angry, but they chose to continue trusting the promise. Tonight, visualize that you are not lying alone in this room. You are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. They are there, not to judge you, but to cheer you on. They are whispering, "Keep going. We walked this path too. We understand. Do not give up." Inhale, inhaling strength and encouragement from this invisible community. And as you exhale, let go of the feeling of loneliness. You are part of a story much greater than you imagine. You are a pilgrim, walking on a path trodden by many saints, and they are waiting for you at home. You are not alone. You are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses who have finished their race and are now cheering you on. This truth brings immense strength. It transforms your solitary journey into a relay race of generations. But standing at the starting lines of tomorrow, the presence of the crowd alone is not enough. You need a focal point, a place to fix your eyes, to keep your steps from straying. Life is often likened to a race, and this image can bring a lot of pressure. We think of a sprint, where we must exert all our strength, must compete, must try to finish first. And when night falls, we are exhausted, feeling like we have lost, because the finish line seems no closer. The anxiety about performance in this race is exactly what steals our sleep. But the Bible, after introducing the cloud of witnesses, paints a completely different picture of this race. The call is not run faster, but therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us explore 3 key elements in this call. First, throw off everything that hinders. What is weighing you down tonight? Is it the burden of regret? The burden of bitterness? The burden of having to please everyone? The burden of perfectionism? These are not necessary supplies. They are rocks in your backpack, making every step miserable. This race is not about carrying. It is about letting go. Second, run with perseverance. The word perseverance here does not mean gritting your teeth to endure. In Greek, it implies abiding under an active and hopeful endurance. It is not a sprint, but a marathon. Rhythm is more important than speed. Durability is more important than explosive power. You do not need to be the fastest runner. You just need not to quit. Third, and perhaps the most liberating, the race marked out for us. This is not a race where you must map out the course yourself. You do not need to compare your lane with others. Your path has been uniquely designed by a loving architect. Your task is not to create the path, but to trust and run on the path marked out for you. But how can we do all these things? How do we let go, persevere, and trust the path? The answer lies in our focus. Khalil Gibran wrote about vision. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Where you direct your eyes will determine where you will go. And the book of Hebrews points us to a single supreme focus. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Fixing our eyes. Not a glancing look, but a total concentration. Like a runner looking only at the road ahead, not to the sides or behind. Jesus is not just an example. He is the pioneer, the one who ran before, who opened the path we are walking. And he is also the perfecter, the one who ensures that we will reach the finish line. How did he run his race? For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. He endured the greatest pain not by the power of will, but by focusing on the joy ahead. What was that joy? It was reunion with the Father. It was the redemption of you and me. What does this mean for your sleep tonight? When worries about tomorrow's race crash in, shift your focus. Instead of looking at the obstacles, look at the pioneer who overcame them all. When you feel exhausted and want to give up, look at the perfecter who promises to give you strength to go on. When you feel your path is too painful, look at the joy set before you. Peace, wholeness, reunion at home. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Tonight, let your weary mind rest from having to navigate itself. Gently rotate the axis of your soul and fix your eyes on Jesus. Let his story, his endurance, his joy become the North Star for your journey. Inhale, inhaling the image of him running ahead of you, and as you exhale, lay down every burden hindering you. The race will no longer be a burden, but a dance when you know you are looking in the right direction. You are running your race with eyes fixed on the pioneer. This brings a new purpose and direction. But on the track, sometimes we stumble. Sometimes we encounter rough, painful roads. There are times when the journey does not feel like a peaceful run. but like a struggle in suffering. And in those moments, an aching question rises from the deep. If God loves me, why does He let me go through this? Has He abandoned me? Nothing steals our sleep faster than the feeling of being abandoned in suffering. When we face difficulties, an illness, a loss, a failure, our minds tend to interpret it as punishment or proof of indifference from God. We feel like orphans, having to face the darkness alone. Bitterness and resentment begin to take root, becoming poisonous thorns preventing us from finding rest. The poet Khalil Gibran spoke of joy and sorrow with a profound truth. The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. He saw a purpose, an expansion within pain. But to accept this, we need to believe that there is a sculptor holding the chisel, and he does so with love, not cruel randomness. And this is where the book of Hebrews brings a revolutionary shift in perspective. The author invites us to view our hardships not as punishment, but as discipline, the training of a father who loves his child. And have you completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as a father addresses his son? It says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves." Disciplines the one he loves. Let this phrase gently reshape how you view your struggles. God's discipline is not a sign of anger, but proof of belonging. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children. For what children are not disciplined by their father? The feeling of abandonment is replaced by the feeling of being seen. The feeling of being a victim of circumstance is replaced by the feeling of being a son under training. This is not training to punish, but to prepare. They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good in order that we may share in his holiness. The purpose of pain in this view is not to hurt you, it is to refine you, to remove what is unnecessary, to make you more like your true image. Of course, this does not make the pain disappear. The Bible is very realistic about this. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. The comfort here is not a denial of your feelings. Your pain is real. Your weariness is real. But the promise is that pain is not the end point. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. A harvest of peace. This is the promise for your sleep. The peace you crave may be growing right in the soil of the difficulties you are facing. Every tear may be watering the seed of patience. Every trial may be causing your roots of faith to deepen. Tonight, try looking back at the burdens keeping you awake through a new lens. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Gently ask, "Father, what are you teaching me through this? How are you refining me?" Inhale, inhaling the trust that a loving hand is behind all you are experiencing. A hand that causes no evil, but can use even the hardest things for your good. And as you exhale, let go of bitterness, resentment, the feeling of being a victim. Let your heart soften, ready to receive training. And when you do so, a miracle happens. The rough road does not become smooth, but your feet become steadier. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet. so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Healing is not always the removal of the problem. Sometimes, healing is receiving the strength to walk amidst the problem with a heart at peace. You are being trained by a loving Father. This truth transforms your difficulties from stumbling blocks into stepping stones. It brings a new purpose and meaning to your journey. But to truly feel peace in this training, you need to know where you are heading. You need to recognize the difference between the place you left and the mountain you are approaching. The human mind always tends to return to what is familiar, even when those things bring us suffering. We have an inherent fear of the divine, an innate sense of guilt that makes us think approaching God is dangerous. We carry within us the memory of a relationship built on fear. The system of the Old Covenant is symbolized by the image of a terrifying mountain, Mount Sinai. The book of Hebrews recounts that terrifying experience. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire, to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them. It was a mountain of separation, a mountain of fear. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, "I am trembling with fear." This is the image of a relationship with God based on law and judgment. When we try to approach Him with our own righteousness, we only feel our own unworthiness and terror before His holiness. Many of our sleepless nights stem from unconsciously living at the foot of this Mount Sinai in our minds. We fear the judgment of others and of ourselves. We hear the trumpet blast of deadlines, of responsibilities. We feel gloom and storm in our anxieties. We beg for the demanding voices in our heads to be silent. But tonight, our journey brings a liberating declaration. You are not there. You no longer live at the foot of that mountain. You have been moved. Khalil Gibran spoke of the evolution of the soul. Yesterday we obeyed kings and bent our necks before emperors, but today we kneel only to truth, follow only beauty, and obey only love. The journey of faith is such an evolution, from obeying rules out of fear to responding to love with freedom. And this is where you stand now. This is your new mountain. But you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. Let these images fill your mind. No longer a burning mountain, but Mount Zion, the city of the living God, a place of life, stability, and eternity. No longer darkness and storm, but thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly. An atmosphere of festival, of praise, of unceasing joy. No longer people trembling with fear, but the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You are a member of the royal family. Your name is enrolled. You belong here. You have come to God, the judge of all. But now He is not a fearsome judge, for you have come to Him through Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. Abel's blood cried out for vengeance. Jesus' blood speaks of forgiveness and reconciliation. Your choice tonight is not between doing good and doing bad. It is between choosing which mountain to live on. Will you pitch your tent at the foot of Mount Sinai of fear, striving, and judgment? Or will you enter and rest in the city of joy, grace, and acceptance? Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful, and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe. Your rest tonight is an act of worship. When you choose to let go of anxiety and trust in grace, you are declaring that you believe you belong to Mount Zion, not Mount Sinai. When you let peace fill your heart, you are joining the joyful assembly of angels. Inhale, inhaling the fresh, pure air of the heavenly Jerusalem. And as you exhale, cast off every remnant of fear, every wisp of smoke from the burning mountain. You are in a different place now, a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And in that kingdom, you are safe. You are in a kingdom that cannot be shaken. You are a citizen of the heavenly Jerusalem, a place of joy and grace. This truth is the firmest anchor for your soul. Now, as our contemplative journey draws to a close, how do we carry the peace of that kingdom into daily life, beginning with sleep tonight? The answer lies in simple acts of love, small choices carrying the weight of heaven. After a profound spiritual journey, we often tend to seek grand actions to demonstrate our transformation. But true transformation lies not in great things, but in how we perform small things. The peace of an unshakable kingdom is expressed not through building castles, but through how its citizens treat one another in the small alleyways. Khalil Gibran, when asked about giving, did not speak of grand gifts. He said, "It is well to give when asked, but it is better to give unasked through understanding." These are actions stemming from a transformed heart, a heart that can see the needs of others before they are spoken. And this is exactly how the book of Hebrews concludes its magnificent letter. Not with high theological arguments anymore, but with incredibly practical instructions, the rhythms of grace. Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Love is not an emotion, but a persistent choice. Tonight, before sleeping, think of one person you can show love to tomorrow. A kind word, a text message to check in. Let love be the final action in your mind. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. The kingdom of God has no strangers, only brothers and sisters we have not yet met. Hospitality starts with opening your heart, ready to welcome, not to judge. Let your heart rest in openness instead of closing tight in suspicion. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. The greatest enemy of rest is discontent, the endless chase for more. Contentment is an act of faith, a declaration that what God gives you today is enough. Tonight, mentally list 3 things you are grateful for. Let gratitude, not lack, be the final feeling of the day. And why can we do this? Why can we be content? Because we have a promise more precious than all the treasures in the world. Because God has said, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." Let this sentence be the final lullaby for your soul. Never, never, amidst the changes of life, amidst the uncertainties of tomorrow, there is a presence that never changes, an embrace that never lets go. And because of that promise, we can speak to all the anxieties and fears trying to invade our sleep. So we say with confidence, "The Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" Our journey, from Act 1 to Act 3 has led us here, to a place of simple trust. You have an eternal King. You have a new covenant written on your heart. You have a cloud of witnesses surrounding you. You have a pioneer to look to. You have a Father who is disciplining you in love. And you are standing on Mount Zion. Now, there is nothing left to do, nothing left to prove, nothing left to fear. Only rest remains. And the final benediction from this very letter, which is also my blessing to you tonight. Now may the God of peace equip you with everything good for doing his will, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. Take a deep breath in, inhaling the peace of God. And as you exhale, let your body and mind sink completely into sleep. You are loved. You are safe. Good night.